Man, I don't know. I mean, I think for a while I didn't miss the competition that much. When I initially moved here, I was just super injured. And so for me, it was like, it really started as like just trying to get to a place where I could go out on a run.
Yeah. We're back. For those of you that are rejoining for the second season, welcome back. You may notice a slight brand change, but I'm going to get into all of that, so let's just take it from the top. Goal of this podcast is to promote mental health in our everyday communities. We do that by having an everyday conversation, reflecting on our current endeavors, and analyzing them against 5 big life questions that I've come up with that speak to how we attach meaning to our efforts. We're taking a slightly new direction by going through specific communities so we can learn what a day in their shoes is like in their own words. And first up, we're diving into the running community. We kick things off on today's episode with Erin Clark. Her running distances get longer as her running resume does. She's a 3-time first team All American on the track, but since her college days, she has converted to trail ultra marathoning. At the beginning of 2023, she joined the Nike trail running team, and our conversation takes place a month or two after that, where we just dive into what that was like, learn more about her thought process through it all, and how she's learning to manage expectations today. Before we jump in, a special shout out to Susan and Andy. Hi, I hope you guys are doing well. And without further ado, let's kick it over to the interview. All right. Hello. I'm joined by my good friend Erin Clark here, who we go back a long time. Many of you may know her from her current or more recent running endeavors and competitions. But I know Erin from, I don't know, all the embarrassing moments from like elementary school, middle school, high school, and through. So I'm super thrilled to have Erin Clark on today. Thanks for joining me, Erin.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And I'm really excited to get a chat with you today. This has been super fun.
Awesome. So let's start really broad today and just help the audience relate to you and introduce you to the audience. Tell us where you're at today in life, both kind of like professionally, and then also give us a side like mentally, if you wouldn't mind.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm living in Missoula, Montana, which is kind of in like the western edge of Montana near Idaho, for those who don't know that, because I feel like many might not. I'm running trails professionally for Nike, and right now that's really my main gig, which is new for me. Running like has always been kind of my main gig, but I've always been working on the side. And so it feels like a really cool time right now and a neat opportunity for me to really kind of lean all the way into that. Um, and then to tie that to the other question, I think part of the reason I haven't been this all in the past, obviously money has something to do with it, but I think part of it as well was just like the fear that if things weren't going well running wise, I didn't have as much of something to fall back on if I didn't have like another job or something. Um, so for the first time, I'm kind of like trusting that like I am in a place where like I can handle that if things don't go my way, and I won't like totally unravel if this is really my like top key focus in life. So that's where I'm at mentally. It feels like I'm taking a leap, but it feels like really good. And I think I feel like personally I'm in a place where like I feel comfortable taking that leap, and I have a good support system around me, and it feels necessary to try to chase bigger goals, I guess.
An awesome start. I kind of want to break this down and try to just get a closer look at how we've gotten here and the other variables that are kind of at play here. So backing way up, tell me more about running and specifically like when did you know that like you wanted to pursue it as a career and that you could?
Yeah. Um, Man, I mean, I started running like very like pretty young, like middle school, and obviously then you're not like thinking about career and stuff, but I was like pretty good right away. And I've always been pretty competitive, so like I liked that. Like I keyed into that. I was like, I beat some people doing this. Like
Uh-huh.
I'm probably gonna kind of keep doing this thing. And then I feel like from there, a lot of times, as for many people, it was pretty like natural progression. So I think by the time I was halfway through high school, I was like, I'm pretty good at this. Like, I think I could do this in college. I know people who have gone to do this in college. And then same kind of deal. Maybe like halfway through college, it was like, like I've hit these accolades. Like I qualified for the 2016 trials 1 year in college, and was like, okay, like I'm running against professionals here. So like in theory, I could try and make it as a professional.
Totally.
Yeah.
Along that trajectory. So there was one kind of inflection point and then a second inflection point in college. Did you think that you wouldn't get to this part where you wouldn't get to compete at the highest levels?
Oh, a lot of times. I mean, I think my senior year of college, or like my fifth year, because a lot of athletes will do, that fifth year, I started kind of talking to some brands in the fall, and I was kind of in a weird space where I was definitely good enough to go pro at a certain level, but I wasn't going to be making a ton of money. I knew that. Like I'd be working another job probably, and I didn't really have people reaching out to me because I wasn't like finishing at the top of the NCAA. So I was doing a lot of that, like trying to look around on my own. And at the same time, I was having a lot of injury issues, and just like I wasn't able to race that fall because I had no more eligibility. So I was just training, but I like kept getting injured and was like super frustrated. And so I think there was a lot of days in there where I was like, I have these offers, but like, screw it. I almost just want to like be like, no, I'm not going to do it. But yeah, so there's a lot of kind of inflection points in there where I was like, not really sure if that was going to be the path. And I feel like I just kind of always found my way back to it, whether it was like through like very intentional means or like with trail, it was like almost falling into it. It felt like in a sense, but yeah.
Right. Let's go into that just a little bit. So coming out of college, you end up running competitively at the pro level right away. And as you alluded to, the injuries keep mounting and you can't shake them. And then it gets to a point where you're kind of in between things. And you decide to move to Montana. For those that are wondering how I know this, it's again just because I know Erin. So I'm skipping a lot of points here. But in that time, did you still have those professional aspirations?
At that time, I really didn't. Which was the first time I think I hadn't. So I really feel like through most of college and the 2 years I was running professionally on the roads, I was like having good results, but simultaneously like would get injured, would come back, would have a good result, and would kind of like do this cycle again and again. And every time I had like such a fire and such a fight to like get back, and it kept working in my favor, right? Because I knew the time before I'd gotten back and then I'd qualified for whatever meet or like run a PR or something. And so it kept me kind of coming back, and it felt like that last injury that I had while I was training in Flagstaff, I believe it was 2019. I kind of like, it felt like the last straw in a sense. It was a bigger injury and a trickier one to figure out than anything else. And I was like, I've been doing this and coming back every time for so many years. And it kind of felt like this is finally the one that's like gonna break me and like actually end this. Which was really sad. Like I had a really hard time like kind of coming to terms and dealing with that. But I think it was partially that kind of was the kicker for me to leave running on the roads in Flagstaff, and also just the fact that and this is similar, I think, to what I was saying before, where like I'm in a really great place now where I feel supported. I was new to that city within the last year or two, and I hadn't built like this community around me really. And I didn't know very many people in town outside of my team, and just I had some good friends here and there, but I think I really with where I was at, I just like that was another straw that kind of pushed me to leave. Is I was like, I am really not happy here. Like I'm not happy as a human either. So it was kind of twofold, I think, in the end.
Tell me a little bit more about first the physical injury. What was the injury?
I like really screwed up my back, which is why it was so hard to figure out, because I ended up like messing up one of the discs and like tearing part of the annulus, which is like this little thing and like between your discs.
Discs.
Honestly,
Okay.
I can't totally like understand it, but like when people have a
Sure.
herniated disc, it was like similar to that sort of thing, but that's super weird to get as like a 25-year-old like
Right.
person who's just running. Like
Yeah.
you usually get that from like weird impact or like when you're like
Yeah.
a lot older and stuff. And so it just took a really long time to kind of get to the bottom of it. And this like tear in the annulus is a little different and like takes a lot like kind of longer to heal. And
Yeah.
anyway, so there's like a whole series of things. It was kind of like hard to figure out, but
Yeah.
yeah.
You then, at the same time are thinking about, what your support looks like and what that's doing for your mentals in that kind of between time, in that, let's call it a lull time. What would you have liked to have known? That's really hard English for me for whatever reason. But yeah, what would you have liked to have known in that time that like you didn't?
That's a really tricky question. I don't know if I have a really great answer to it, but I think looking back now, I feel like I put a lot of like blame for this on myself, and not in a bad way, just in a sense of taking accountability, and that like I felt like I didn't have people I could lean on who are
Yeah.
around me to talk about this with and to say like, how do I make this decision? Like, do I try to stick it through? Do I decide to go somewhere else? And I kind of like went through the majority of that, I think, on my own. And I guess like what I wish it would have known is that like those people were there if I had reached out to them. Like I had friends who would have played that role, but I just hadn't known them for as long, especially locally, and
Sure.
wasn't like in a place where I felt like I could talk to them about that. But like just that like it's okay to like reach out and like kind of start that conversation. And that's what I like wish I would have known is like, yeah, you can do that. And instead I kind of did the very common thing I think for people, which is where like I was hurting a lot and I felt isolated because I couldn't train with my team. And so I just like totally like further isolated myself, which
Right. Kind of
very
closed off.
harmful. Yeah.
I'm basically going to ask the same question in another way, but shift the scope of the time.
Mm-hmm.
First, you were talking about when you were coming out of college, you were thinking about you didn't have the resources and you weren't as certain about the resourcefulness, aka, companies weren't reaching out to you. So resourcefulness, it didn't look like there were a lot of options there.
Mm-hmm.
But then also a couple of years later, you've got this new narrative, this new learning about the importance of community. So if you were to then try to shift that forward, what would you tell then that college Erin that's coming out of college, looking for those like professional opportunities, about the importance of a community?
I think a big thing for me is like there just wasn't a lot of people like telling me how to navigate that process, and like I didn't have a contact to reach out to different groups and different brands. And so I was like, oh, I kind of have this one offer, like it seems pretty decent, like I guess I'll do that. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just like DM like some random person if you have to, like whatever, like it's fine if you like get no's, but it's better to ask around, like reach out to whoever. And I think being in the trail world has helped me know that, because just people do that all the time. Everyone I feel like is constantly trying to like network within this space, which is kind of cool. But anyways, so that's like the one thing. And then I think the biggest thing was like less when I was in the process of deciding where I was going to run professionally initially, but more like once I got there, is like I wish I would have really worked to make better friendships with the people that were around me, and even more so like make friendships with like other people in the community as well who weren't directly tied to my team and running. And I think that was like the biggest thing, is that like I didn't have like a friend group that wasn't like exactly the people I'm going to train with every single day. And that's it was like there was like really like 3 other people that were on my team that I was training with. And then I had a couple friends here and there as well. In terms of like doing things outside of your specific sport or training, like you need, like if I didn't have similar interests outside of sport to those people, then it's like if I'm inviting you to go like do X, Y, or Z, and like that's not the type of thing that you like to do, then it's like this kind of
Yeah.
mishmash. So it was that, I think that part was tricky too.
Yeah, for sure. Those lines between like friends and then like running teammates, right? It just keep
Yeah.
getting scrutinized over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's like, and how much like do we actually have in common besides the fact that like we both want to run our personal
Right.
best in the 10K, you know, like
Yeah. All right, so in that space, going back to the space where you were talking about you really weren't thinking about running professionally, what did you then miss about either competition or running?
man, I don't know. I mean, I think for a while I didn't miss the competition that much. I think
Mm,
when I initially moved here, I was just super injured. And so for me, it was like, it really started as like just trying to get to a place where I could go out on a run.
yeah,
And I had, without just like being in pain like all the time.
yeah.
And I had gotten a dog too. And so it really started with like me like learning to trust my body again and like going out for a 30-minute jog with my dog. And I think from there, it kind of then became this thing of like, okay, how do I get back to like having this thing be fun and being able to challenge myself without looking at my watch and being like, wow, you freaking suck. You're running 1 minute per mile slower than usual. Like trying to make it like positive as opposed to just comparing myself to like the runner I felt like I
Yesterday.
was, yeah,
Right,
6 months ago or a year ago or something.
right. Was it hard to give yourself that like love and grace when you're building yourself back up?
It was super hard.
Yeah.
I think especially in workouts, that was the biggest thing. Like when I would have like a specific intervals that I was doing, once I, decided I want to kind of train for fun.
Uh-huh.
Especially like I avoided workouts with obvious metrics for a really long time. Like I wouldn't
Okay.
run mile repeats because I didn't want to see how much slower my mile repeats were. I would
Okay.
do like a a hard run up a hill because then I didn't have a metric because
Mm,
I didn't know whether a 9 minute mile was
mm,
good or a 7:30 mile was good or what. I just
mm.
knew that I was going as hard as I could.
You kind of had to fake yourself out.
I had to, and I spent a lot of time like being afraid to do these other workouts. And honestly, I feel like that went on for a fairly long time.
Yeah.
Um, and then I remember like I did some online thing during COVID where they had like, it was like a virtual challenge. There was like a 10K, a 5K, an 8K, and a 6K. And if you like place in the top, like regionally, you would like move on to the next one.
Uh-huh.
And I would go out and like do them by myself. And it was like awful. Like it was torture, but like
Uh-huh.
in like, I kind of liked it, but I was also like, oh my God, like that was so bad compared to
Uh-huh.
what I used to do. And like
Sure.
I went out way too fast and died. But so I think that was like a little bit of just like forcing myself into like experiencing that.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think many people can relate to the fear of taking something that you love and then possibly losing that passion for it when you turn it into work.
Hmm.
When you add competition to that, that doesn't, I would think that doesn't make it an easier pill to swallow. So when you are running these virtual competitions and you're seeing you lose to yourself 3, 4 years ago, how do you how do you keep yourself from, getting down and giving up?
Yeah. I mean, I think it helped that I think at that point I had this idea that I was now going to train for these longer distances. So I think there was a piece of
Mm,
it that was like, okay, I know I'm not, in the end, like I'm not trying to get a personal best on the track out of this. Like I am trying to train for a 50K. Um, and I think the other piece that I go back to really frequently, even, in just like a small off season where I'm starting to build back up for the next race, but I'm not in as good a shape as I was a few months ago. I just go back to like, I need, like, the only way to go forward is to start where I am. And I won't get to my destination unless I like agree that like this is where I am and I accept that and I start there and I try to get better just a little bit week by week.
mm,
I think that has helped me is like really trying to put the blinders on and
mhm.
focus on like the present and where I'm at today.
When you think about then now those distances that were once common for you, the shorter distances, does that feel like a wound that you've kind of adapted around, or something that you have like conquered and something that you're no longer afraid of?
I don't know. It might be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Because I think, yeah, there was like a definitely an intentional like let's evade that kind of situation. Like that's how I got into the longer distances originally, is that I
Mm,
was like, I want to get back to competing. I'd finally gotten like in some degree of like shape or ability to train.
yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to go run like a 5K or a 10K on the road. Like that's not exciting or motivating to me, because I know I'm not gonna like in my mind do quote unquote well.
Yeah.
But to try and run 50K, 31 miles was a brand new challenge. And that's an automatic PR, right? Like I've never done that before and I want to try and
Mm,
do that. And so I think that was kind of my initial workaround. And for better or for worse, I feel like now I've had success in that area. So I can justify to myself, it's okay that I'm not as fast running a mile or a 5K anymore,
mm,
because I have this success over here, which
right.
is not the way I would necessarily like to recommend someone to be able to, handle that. But I think that's kind of the way I have like found my way around it, is being like,
Yeah.
I'm good at this. I can't be good at everything. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
work like that. So
Yeah. What makes you say you wouldn't recommend that for everyone?
I guess, and maybe this is kind of like, I like would like to think that like you could just like accept yourself no matter what, right?
Mm,
Kind of idea. And so that's why I'm like,
yes.
I wouldn't accept
I
that,
see.
and that was the whole thing. It was like, and then I guess the other option to be like, I'd be okay with that if now I had like some other, career. And it's like, that's okay. Like, I don't have to be a fast runner because I'm like X in this career. And like,
Uh-huh.
it's the whole idea of like, you don't need to have that accolade to like be like a great person or whatnot.
Totally.
Um, but at the same time, like, I think we all kind of think like that, right?
100%. And that's why, like, I find it to be very encouraging. I think a lot of people can get stuck, and myself included, over, at first you fail and you try and try again, and you start to get tired, and you start to kind of just like feel wary, and then you start to doubt yourself. But by moving the marker, by setting a different goal, you're able to just trust the fact that, like, no, this thing that I love is still so meaningful to me. And as you pursue new goals, you find new ways to love yourself, right? And it's like after years of doubting. And I think that's refreshing and encouraging.
Yeah, I think I like how you put it that way too. I think it makes it really applicable to a lot of things. Like if you're
Yeah.
trying to get from like A to B, like you don't have to like keep doing this attempt at this straight line. Like, you can like pivot left and like however, and you'll probably kind of end up getting like to a similar place or like a similar level, of accomplishment, but it might just not be exactly what you thought.
Exactly. And as you run, and I'm going to get super corny here, but as you run from A to B, and then you choose A to C, and then you choose A to D and E and F, you will look back and you'll see what you drew in that entire experience turns into quite a mosaic, and a way to, yeah, continue to, I don't know, experience that self growth, self love, self actualization through the whole process. And I think that's awesome. This one's, ugh, I was going to try to skip it. Can't. What does it mean to you now to get to compete, and just like everything that you've been through? Now you are competing again, this newfound confidence, but just in that pure competition form, something that has been such a roller coaster ride.
I think for me, it's like I like to always kind of think and like bring myself back to like why I always did this to begin with. And like I'm still so competitive, and I like get so much like fire out of trying to compete and beat people. And just like I try to like to believe that like nobody's like better at like certain aspects than I am of that. And so yeah, I just think that's like reconnecting with that in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. It's just the flames come back and it's alive.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Love it. Okay. Now this one is we're gonna run this question through all of the runners that come on here, and I'm really excited about it. We're gonna jog through the perfect run. And first, the first criteria is then what is the distance? What's the distance that we're gonna be running, Aaron? For the perfect idyllic run.
Man, I'm a sucker for a good long run. So we're talking 20 to 25 miles here.
All right. Is there a specific location where that 25 miles is gonna just be gorgeous? Climate, time of day? Paint us a little picture here.
It could be really anywhere. I mean, I had incredible time like over in the Alps this past summer getting to race, but there's also so many like incredible high mountain areas just in Montana. So definitely like high alpine somewhere. Nothing beats like getting up high and getting those views. Probably starting in the morning, like you don't want to wait around for this. Could take a while. And time of year, I mean, high alpine, so definitely like summer, like August or something like that. So the snow's cleared away.
Yeah. Very fair. Yeah. Beautiful. And is there any company with you?
Probably, yeah. Like just a couple friends locally. Sometimes it's nice to like be totally solo on those, but yeah, I'd say like some friends for sure.
Okay, so then on these long runs like this, on the solo runs, when you're at like mile 18, and you still got running to go, are you locked in the whole time, or will your thoughts wander? Is there like an internal dialogue going on about nothing related to running?
Yeah, I mean, the thoughts are constantly wandering. I think usually it's more running related for me. Like I often find myself like daydreaming about like one of the next few races I have coming up and like how I'd like to perform in that and like what it would feel like. That's pretty common for me. Especially like towards the end of a run. And then I think there's other times where it's like if I'm going up a big climb, the dialogue will be more intentional in terms of like, oh, keep pushing, like you're doing fine, like it gets better on the other side of this. And then there's times too where I think the thoughts wander to non-running aspects, but I think it varies a lot throughout the run. I think that's why I chose long run is you'll have times where you're very focused, one foot in front of the other, and then there's times where your like head is completely in the clouds.
Yeah, that is very impressive though, that like you're able to, and I guess that is why you are where you are. But for me, if I go on long runs, even by like mile 9, I'll just be like, so like, what else am I gonna do today? Just like, and I'm like, I'm still out here running. I am nowhere near home, and I just have to keep doing this. Like I've done this to myself. I'm just out here now.
Oh yeah, and I'll totally get that too. Yeah. Or like with friends, I feel like when you get to the last like 1/4 of the run, it's always like, so what are we eating after this? Where's brunch?
Which brings us as the perfect segue into the final question of the series is at the end of that run, what is that snack that hits the best and most consistently that's just like, yes, I need one of these and I'm happy?
Oh man, yeah. So if we're talking like summer run, you finish that, I feel like you need like the immediate snack that's in your car is like some kind of soda, like somehow kept ice cold, by miracle. And then watermelon is the best. That's like my fave. And then I feel like followed up by like probably like a burrito or something like that. Just some like actual massive. Like big thing. Yeah.
I love it. That's a good spread. Something bubbly, something fresh, and then some just like very satiating. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, that gets us through the running edition questions. Thank you, Erin. We're going to then transition into the more deeper level questions to get to know the side of Erin outside of running and competition. You ready for that?
Heck yeah.
All right, right on. The way we're going to start this off is I'm going to send you this video message, and then we'll start to kind of peel back the layers of the onion that is Erin Clark.
Cool.
Erin, I honor you for your childlike curiosity. In one of the previous podcast episodes, a guest, Matt Millington, shared some words of wisdom with us. And one of the things that he said was, "Fate leads the willing, but drags the unwilling." Coincidentally, last week, I read somewhere that it is not your circumstances, but what you do with your circumstances that is important. For as long as I've known you, Erin, you've never allowed yourself to be defined by circumstances. It was true back in middle school when you set the longest juggling soccer record among all the middle school and high school girls, and then in high school when you skied sixth in state in downhill skiing. I've heard many times the starry-eyed advice that anything is possible. Today you're shaping a trail running career after being sidelined from a street running one. But the common thread that I see is that you always jump at the opportunity to find what's possible in the big world of anything, not unlike you did when we were kids. For that childlike curiosity that continues to inspire me today, I honor you, I love you, and I'm grateful for you. Thanks, Erin.
I
Share with us your instant reactions, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love it when like, I don't know, like people give the compliments that like actually really like mean something, or that you would love to be defined that way. So I think that was like really cool to me. Like that spoke to me in the sense that it's like, yeah, that's like a quality that I would aspire to have, or that I would hope to have. So yeah, I appreciate that.
So it sounds like that resonated with you. Have you heard that before? Have you thought about that before?
I guess not in that specific like language, but I definitely like try to and like think about taking, like, if you approach everything like positively and like think you can do something with it, then like, not that like, I don't think that like magically better things happen to you, but I think better things happen to you because you view everything that's happening as a better thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes. And like it has potential?
Yeah, or it's like if you're just like going about your day and you are thinking that it's going to be really good, suddenly good things start happening to you, but that's not that there's actually better things happening to you. It's that you like are inputting all those things into your brain as positives.
Yes. Yes.
So that's kind of like
way more of that. Yeah.
That's like the micro sense of like yours is like the mega sense, I feel like, of that.
Thank you for that. No, that describes it perfectly. I need that. Every time something happens, I need to stop just punishing myself or thinking that it's negative.
No, and we for sure still do that. I mean, like, I spill my coffee on the floor, I'm like swearing, but I think it's a good thing to try and remind yourself of.
Yes. All right, well then we're gonna go a little deeper here to get to know Erin, and we're gonna pull the first layer back here by asking about core values. And the reason why I ask about core values is because I think values, as we get older, I've learned this, but as we think about values, these are the ways that we can kind of communicate, what we want to get back for our time. And from that nucleus, then comes a more natural like curiosity, creativity, and self-expression. So we'll keep it to just 3. But Erin, what are your top 3 core values?
Let's see. Authenticity, I think, is a big one for me.
Yeah.
Perseverance was the other one. And then the third one, I mean, you kind of already gave me curiosity, but so that feels like I'm cheating. But I think like that one, or like adventure, or like something that kind of speaks to that sort of idea.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna write curiosity.
Cool.
Right on. Authenticity, perseverance, curiosity. Anything that you'd want to add to that?
I think the first one is just that for me, I believe I have one shot to experience this world. And so I think a core value of mine is just to have every experience I can, and like just like try to take everything in. And you can't always do that. Of course, I like make sacrifices of things because I'm a professional athlete, but I think I like to try and say yes to as many things as I think makes sense and can make my life as big as possible. So I'd say that is one. I think the second is to be really conscious of the people around you, and to very intentionally kind of cultivate that and make sure that those people know that they're important, and kind of create that circle very intentionally, and be a be a positive influence there. I think just intentionality with what you're doing and who you're doing it with kind of sums it up for me.
Playing a role in community with a high level of intentionality, I feel like those can both be expressed very naturally through authenticity and just being your most authentic self. But then the perseverance and curiosity, they also kind of speak to then your hobbies, your interests, and how you are exploring. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
The way you set it up is like, yeah, that's how I would think about it for sure. Like those last two do kind of define like what I want to go out and try and do. And then that first one is about like, yeah, like I really think this is true. And I hope my friends would say this, is that like when I show up somewhere, like what you see is what you get. And I think they would agree.
Yeah. Well, bad news. I actually no, I'm just kidding. That's awesome. All right, going another kind of a couple layers deeper now. That next question is, where are your fears at in life today?
Yeah, I remember seeing this question and being like, wow, this is going to be the hard one. Yeah, I mean, obviously like the first thing that comes to mind is just like not hitting goals and like being like, oh, I signed this contract and a lot of people had belief in me and I like really, really fell short on all of that. And so I think that's probably like the first most obvious fear, but yeah, so I think that's one. And then I think probably looking more as like just any human, I would say probably just like the fear of like this, I guess this is related, but like letting people down around you, like not yeah, I think I've noticed in like scenarios that I can tend to be very aware of worried and aware of if other people aren't having a good time or happy in that scenario or whatever it is, and tend to very heavily internalize that in a way that probably is not useful. Like that often may have nothing to do with what I'm doing, you know?
Right. This may be an obvious answer, but I'm still curious. We talked about how you've already got good practice to the point where it's almost natural for you to find that positive lining where you can take everything with positivity and choose to pour into the positive cup. But these fears are both pretty heavily about people's expectations of you. Do you have a hard time kind of drawing that line of like when you're just doing this for Erin?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I guess I don't personally see a really definitive line between doing something for yourself and doing it for others or doing it for expectations. I think
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I think those are really blurry, especially as an athlete who has a sponsor and who has huge goals to succeed at these races. But obviously some of that is always going to be determined by those around you as well. So I think those are pretty blurry for me.
Yeah. My brain then jumps back to community. And I wonder if that has helped create that space for you, where when those lines get blurry, you at least have ways to reach out to people and reaffirm some of those lines and boundaries for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And I think Missoula, I think is really, I think that's always been there, but it's the first place I've really like seen and felt it to a heavier degree that I do have those people. And I think part of it is because I have friends who aren't centered on running and friends who can say like, you know, like take a day off, take it easy on yourself, you know, like focus on this other thing. So I think that, and then just like having people around you that kind of like that see you, that seem to get you, I think is huge. And then I think some of it can be just kind of on you going back in and being like, okay, like, why am I really doing this? And if I was making no money doing this, would I still be doing this? And at what level, you know?
How often do you check on yourself like that, whether it's through community or kind of that self-talk?
Um, I think self-talk, I tend to do that a lot leading into races, just in terms of
Mm,
reminding myself like why I'm there so that I can go to the start line and feel much more free and feel excited and grateful to be there
yeah,
instead of feeling, some pressure.
yeah,
And so I think leading up to competitions, I tend to do that a lot. Uh, and then I think I for sure here have like a couple good friends that are better about talking to stuff and will about stuff and like will kind of give that space. So it's like less intentional, but it's like when someone says like, "How are you doing this week?" It's like, no, I'm seriously asking you how you're doing this week,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
which I think is cool because I think I'm personally not very good at starting those conversations, and so it's cool to have some people around me who have better talent and awareness with that.
yeah, yeah. Shout out them. Shout out friends. Shout out
Yeah,
community.
yeah.
All right, so then kind of coming back up, I like that question because yes, it speaks to the fact that like, we're all going through things. But then on the flip side of that, I think that when it comes to our successes, we are also not all that we appear to be. So this next question is, what's something that you're proud of that you've accomplished that not a lot of people know about?
Man, that one's really cool. I think one of the accomplishments I think about a lot for myself is uh, that I think a lot of people maybe don't recognize is it's related to sport, but it's also not. In that trail running takes you way out of your comfort zone and places where you're 20 miles deep and you're alone and you don't want to make a mistake. You can't really make a mistake. And so I think for me, part of what I'm proud of is not just like the results, but of being in those situations and being able to like keep a clear head and tell myself like, uh, you only have you to rely on, and that's okay, and you can handle this, and kind of learning to trust myself, I guess,
Yeah,
is a big one. Yeah, yeah.
that's
So that
so
I'd
cool.
say that's what I'm proud of.
Okay, so we've made a small lap around, around the deaths of Erin here. I'm curious then if you've got some words of wisdom that you could impart on us. This could be a life motto that you live by, or yeah, just like general advice that you would like to share.
Maybe I'll go back to kind of what I was just saying is that like, do you truly like you can trust yourself and you have that ability, and I think others will be there to lean on when you need them, and so you can trust yourself and then you can also trust people around you. I think when you open up to people, it goes generally much better than you create it in your head.
Yeah, isn't that true? Isn't that true? Unless you have older siblings, because then it's just they just like to dunk on you. But in general, otherwise, I think that's true. um, all right, that brings us to the final question. This is my favorite question, and that question is, what is the best compliment that somebody could give you?
I think to turn it around, I think the biggest diss someone could give me would be to say that I was boring. And so
Uh-huh.
I think like kind of the best compliment, right, is whatever is the opposite of boring.
Whoa.
Like
Yeah.
I I hope to be like someone who's interesting and engaging and lively.
Yeah. All great descriptors, all great adjectives. And that's so funny because no one's ever taken this approach to answering this question before. And I've asked this question hundreds of times.
I just
Love
feel like
it.
there's so many opposites to the word boring,
Yes. Yes.
that could be great compliments. I just don't know like what the exact one
And
is.
to that point, it's a little bit of a cop out. Therefore, I'm just gonna press you a little bit. I'm gonna press you a little bit. It might not make the edit. It might not make the edit. It's all good. It's all good.
um, I mean, I'm trying to think of like if I was spending time with a friend and they were to like give me a compliment, like
Yeah.
what I would like that to be. And I think
Yeah.
um it would be something really simple. Like it would be
Yeah.
something just like you like make my day or myself better when I'm around you, or I like always like
Yes.
to be around you, or you bring me positive energy. I think it would be something as
Yeah.
simple as that.
Yeah. I like that. Where you said positive energy, my mind jumped to positivity. And then going all the way back to, well, I'm seeing that everywhere now. Your reaction to how I honored you, um, the positivity that was within that childlike curiosity, the positivity that you maintained even when you were uncertain about running again. Um, yeah, I'm kind of seeing that everywhere and through our conversation. That's really neat. Yeah.
I I don't know. It may be something, that I'm striving for and that I see up here more than I can always be and can always exude. But yeah, it's in my mind at least.
I think you're doing great. And it's
Thanks.
showing in all the best ways. So good for you. All right. We have arrived. We're at the end. We're at the end. And at this time, yeah, you get to uh, like kind of nominate somebody, tag somebody through this concept of honoring. And we'll get to that in just a second. But do you know who you'd like to honor today?
Yeah. I told you last time that this part was going to be really hard for me, and you
Yeah.
were like, "Don't think on it too much."
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
think the person will come to you as you're like thinking through all this, and you were
Yeah.
totally right, which is crazy because I was like, "No, that's not going to happen. I'm going to panic." Um, but yeah, the person who came to mind. So I talked a lot about just like really finally in Missoula feeling like I had found my people.
Yeah.
And my boyfriend's here and that had been important to me and all that, but I think the friend piece is the piece that was there but not to the same depth, same level.
Totally.
And I don't know if that's because of where I was at personally in other places or what. But the person who came to mind for me is my friend Amy. And she's an athlete but also someone, who works another job and is very very involved. But the reason she came to mind is because of what I mentioned about being kind of having a tough time with these big, deep conversations. And I feel like she has been someone for me who has been there to like kind of show me the way and like very subtly lead the way in terms of how you ask these questions or talk about stuff, and just being like so honest and saying like she had a knee injury this year and being like, I'm really struggling with this. This is what's going on with me right now. Or
Mm.
I got a new therapist and I'm going to just tell you about it. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, we've talked about that before. And it's freaking sick that you're talking to me about that. Just,
Yeah. Yeah.
just things that I know I wouldn't do a good job of bringing up to my friend, even if I wanted to or needed to. And so I think it's been cool to have her as that model for me.
All right. When you see the camera, go.
Hey, Amy, I'm choosing to honor you this week because funny to say at the age of 28, but I feel like you've really taught me how to be a better friend, and to ask the important questions and to like really, really listen to the answers. That's been really crucial for me, I think, in this past year. And when I was trying to figure out the brand I wanted to sign with, and just really trying to trust that I could leave something I was involved in and take on something new. I think you helped me kind of give me the courage to stand on my own 2 feet, and were really honest with me. So I honor you. Um, you've been such an awesome supporter when you're going through hard stuff and injuries, and you're still like an awesome supporter for me. So that's really special and really important. And I'm excited to hear your deep thoughts in this podcast.
Thanks again to Erin for sharing her story with us on today's episode. Now that we are here in the future, I'm happy to report that Erin ended up winning her first race of the year, the Lake Sonoma 50-mile race. Yeah, 50 miles, man. We're going to try to get her on in like a one-off episode soon just to talk about it and see what else she has in store for the year. As for the episode, there are a couple of things that stood out to me that made this one really special. First, asking for help. Each person and each scenario present their own complications asking for help. And it's funny because we can often think of asking for help situationally, looking for the best opportunity to do so. But I love how Erin says when you feel isolated, it's easy to convince yourself not to ask for help, but you are only further isolating yourself. It's okay to reach out when you need help. Another point that was really cool was hearing Erin's experience building herself back up as a runner. She mentioned that she had to challenge herself to make running fun again. She accomplished that by allowing herself to change her goals and embrace the fact that the only way to go forward is to start where you are. But I know there were many other nuggets that Erin dropped in this episode. I'd love to hear what stood out to you. Let me know in the comments. And remember, it's never a bad time to reconnect with someone that you've been meaning to reach out to. I'll see you guys in the next one.